like music?
Very much.
Swell. The records are right in the cabinet.
Well, is it okay with you, sir?
Sure, kids, go ahead.
Well, thank you.
Pick something groovy, Alex.
Well, listen, let me tell you, baby, what I'm talking about. Come on back to me, little girl, so
Elvis and rock and roll arrived in the 50s, and kids stopped listening to their parents' music.
Come back.
Beat poets, led by Jack Kerouac and moving to the rhythms of jazz, took the rebellion underground and inspired a counterculture. Something strange was happening. In the land of Eisenhower, Doris Day, and the segregated South, young kids were dancing to black music, celebrating sex, and hitchhiking across the country. To their worried parents, there was only one comfort. Surely, this new beat would never last.
You better dig this next number.
Ow! Take it.
Fox Lab. Come on. Oh, Fox Lab. Come on. Oh, Fox Lab. Come on.
In the late 40s and early 50s, New York City was pulsing with the beat of a new music, bebop. It was an original African-American sound that was changing the rhythm of the city's culture.
In that era when your life is a movie, that was the music of the movie. You could walk over to the 5 spot and hear Thelonious Monk and John Coltrane. That was the house band. That music was making an expression of the times, the way that the painting was, the statement about the time, a rhythm about the time that was very inspiring.
Musicians, painters, and writers migrated to New York in search of new ways to express a discontent with the limits of post-war life. One of these was a young aspiring writer named Jack Kerouac.
When I first met Kerouac, he was a poet, and I was studying at Columbia. I was amazed how beautiful he looked, and how serious he was, and how friendly he was to me. I don't know what he thought of me, but he liked the idea that I thought of myself as a poet. He had a kind of dark handsomeness, certainly, and a clarity of features. He had a very handsome face, but also a kind of a very tender, melancholy, brooding, intelligent mind.
Kerouac and Ginsberg banded together to form a loose group of poets and writers known as the Beats.
I think what attracted us was that everybody was somewhat interested in literature, poetry, art, and to define some kind of new vision of America.
The search for a new vision took the Beats underground to the late-night bars and cafeterias around New York's Times Square.
Kerouac began picking up on the word beat, drawn from the common vocabulary of Times Square, meaning in those days exhausted, worn out, maybe homeless, maybe up all night, not wanting to be hassled. It didn't mean beaten. It didn't mean the beat of drums. It didn't mean hearing the beat man snap, 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 all that hippy-dippy stereotype you get on mass media. It just meant emotionally and intellectually exhausted and wide open, and maybe receptive to some other awareness, some more deeper perception.
The other beat driving Kerouac was the rhythm of jazz. He didn't want to be just another writer. He wanted to be a jazz musician who played the typewriter. The jazz player that meant the most to Kerouac was Charlie Parker.
Charlie Parker was the greatest alto saxophonist who ever lived. I mean, this is a guy who believed everything should be original. And, some people said that he was able to invent classics on his feet.
What Kerouac admired about Charlie Parker was his ability to take American standards, speed them up, give them new rhythms, and make them his own.
To Charlie Parker, the original High Out of the Moon is just a folk tune. Hey? Hey, babe. Da 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 da. Yeah, I'm playing like that. That other sounds like a folk tune beside that. How much more complicated and how much more swaying it is.
Kerouac was picking up on the fact that the cadences were like spoken language. You could use those rhythms in writing. So what Kerouac was doing was taking the same kind of new rhythmic beat into his prose and his poetry.
It's the beat generation. It's Bayat. It's the beat to keep. It's the beat of the heart. It's being beat and down in the world, and like old-time lowdown, and like in ancient civilizations, the slave boatmen rowing galleys to a beat.
Kerouac had found his form. Now he needed a subject. Then, one day in 1947, a real-life hero walked in the front door of Kerouac's apartment.
Who put the band's a dream in Mrs. Murphy's old teeth? She was a
Kerouac called him a young Gene Autry, a sideburned hero of the snowy West. In Kerouac's novels, he would become Dean or Cody, but his real name was Neal Cassady, a restless seducer who had slept with countless women and stolen over 500 cars.
To him, sex was the only holy and important thing in life. That mad Ahab at the wheel, wrapped up in a fast car, a coast to reach, and a woman at the end of the road.
Neal Cassady had this lust for adventure and lust for some spiritual adventure. He had the energy to cross the country maybe in 72 hours, driving continuously, just on his natural exuberance. I think Kerouac speaks of Neal's unspeakable American enthusiasm. Like as if some old queen in New York said, "Oh, he's unspeakably enthusiastic, my dear." Neal would visit Kerouac and try to learn how to write, talk about writing with Kerouac. Then in 1947, he invited Kerouac to go on the road. And so this was the perfect opportunity to go out with a totally American character across America.
Sal, we gotta go and never stop going till we get there.
Where are we going, man?
I don't know, but we gotta go.
Across America, Kerouac began writing a novel in his mind, a beat novel set to the rhythms of bebop that would discover for a new generation the American dream of a land without limits.
The only people for me are the mad ones. The ones who are mad to live, mad to talk, mad to be saved, desirous of everything at the same time. The ones who never yawn or say a commonplace thing, but burn, 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 like fabulous yellow Roman candles exploding like spiders across the stars.
Now the bellhop's tears keep flowing, the desk clerk's dressed in black. Well, they've been so long on the street, they'll never look back. And they're so lonely, baby. Well, they're so lonely. Well, they're so lonely. they afraid of dying.
Elvis Presley was a crossroads personality. He was a country hick with dreams of Tinseltown, who offered the ultimate American dream: to be outside but not lonely, free but not poor, naughty but nice. Elvis Presley was born in 1935 in East Tupelo, Mississippi, a sharecropper's town. Struggling to make ends meet, Elvis and his family lived in a designated white house in a black neighborhood. It was a symbol of the post-war South, segregated and racially mixed. After the war, as machines took the jobs from the southern cotton fields, the Presleys moved to Memphis, Tennessee, a manufacturing center and a magnet for rural blacks and whites seeking a better life. Memphis was also a music town, and the soul of the music scene was on Beale Street.
Beale Street was like a college of higher learning for me. It was more like a little city within itself. I guess it was about 4 blocks maybe, and everything seemed to be going on within those 4 blocks. There was 3 movie places, and you had the Palace Theater where they had floor shows once a week. A place called the 1 Minute that had the best chili in the world. There was musicians, the best musicians, traveling musicians, you get a chance to see. I'm talking about black musicians because this was, it wasn't integrated at that time. So you could walk in the park and some of the best musicians would stop and sometimes just practicing their horns. They'd find little corners in Beale Street and sit there and practice.
Top of the morning to you, my friends, from the home of colorful old Beale Street, the place where the blues began in Memphis, Tennessee.
WDIA was an all-black operated station. I went over there seeking a job. I said, I want to make a record and go on the radio. And he laughed and called Mr. Ferguson, which was the general manager. They said, can you write us a jingle? Can you get a jingle? Yeah. Pepticon show is good. Pepticon show is good. Pepticon show is good. You can get it anywhere in your neighborhood.
B.B. King became both a DJ and a performer on WDIA, the station with enormous power and influence known as the mother station of the Negroes.
Now here it is, 3 o'clock in the morning. Can't even close my eyes.
Though it was meant for black audiences, more and more young whites began secretly tuning in.
In terms of Memphis, I think everything that happened here in the 50s culturally was a result of racial collision. The separation of the races, which had been very drastic in Memphis, both races were moving towards each other until they culturally collided.
Elvis was drawn to the music and the gaudy style of Beale Street.
And it was where the black pimps and gamblers bought their clothes, as did Elvis. I did. Anybody, the kids from Memphis, you knew to go down to Lansky Brothers. I vividly remember my first white silk on silk Lansky Brothers shirt. I'd give anything to have that now. The big roll shawl collar, Musically, what happened in Memphis is a crossroads situation. It was black music and country music. And country music, of course, was very, very different in the 50s. You could hear, honest to God, hillbilly music, on the radio.
Hey, good looking, jumping up with me. Say, hey, sweet baby, don't you think, baby, we could find us a brand new recipe?
Elvis Presley grew up on country music. He was singing some of Hank Williams songs. He was singing some of Gene Autry's songs, but he sang them in a way that nobody else could do.
In Memphis, Elvis was like a kid in a candy store, grabbing at what he liked, the Ink Spots and Dean Martin, white gospel singers and black blues bands.
Well, now that's all right, now, Mama. That's all right for you.
But at the time, mixing up the sights and sounds of the races was against the rules. It would take a peculiar businessman to change all that.
That's all right now.
In 1950, Sam Phillips opened the Memphis Recording Service, 1 block from Beale Street, to record what was then known as race music.
I had one thing in mind. That was to explore the real talent potential that was in, quote unquote, this area. I knew that it had been overlooked all these many years. I wanted so desperately to devote my time to finding these people, giving them the opportunity to record it.
You women have heard of jalopies, you've heard the noise they make, but let me introduce my new Rocket 88. Yes, it's straight, just one way. Everybody likes my Rocket 88, baby.
White kids were buying rhythm and blues records then. I just saw this vast amount of potential customers, and I knew if we could get somebody that was white, that was singing with the fervor, the feel, and with the natural style, and with the honesty, and, quote me again, the integrity, that the feel that you got from black music, that would be a boon to this business.
In 1953, Elvis Presley was driving a delivery truck, but he wanted to be a singer. Over and over again, he would pass by Sam Phillips' studio, trying to muster up the courage to go in to record a song.
Elvis was like so many black people back in the 50s and before. He had grown up real, talking about poor financially. He was very insecure from the standpoint of what the future held for him. He made up this bit about his mother's birthday, and he wanted to do a record for her. Now, we found out, and I didn't know at the time, we found out that her birthday had long since passed, and it wasn't ready for a new one.
A million years it seems have gone by since we shared our dreams, but I'll hold you again. I'll be no blue memories then.
Sam Phillips asked his secretary to make a note of the boy's name and to add a brief comment. Good ballad singer, hold for later.
Just as long as
Kerouac's life on the road with Neal Cassady began to take on a kind of mythic quality, one which he helped to create. He wrote about his experiences as if they were part of a mystical quest for a new, offbeat American dream.
At lilac evening, I walk with every muscle aching among the lights of 27th and Welton in the Denver colored section, wishing I were a Negro, feeling that the best the white world offered was not enough ecstasy for me, not enough life, joy, kicks, darkness, music, not enough night. I stopped at the little shack where a man sold red-hot chili in paper containers. I bought some and ate it, strolling the dark, mysterious streets. wished I were a Denver Mexican, or even a poor, overworked Jap. Anything but what I was so drearily, a white man disillusioned. The Negro people will be the salvation of America.
There's an almost innocent reverence for black culture, which is a hallmark of the counterculture which will grow. They see blacks being freer and less restrained, which may be true, but it's because the other society that they are rejecting has yet to incorporate blacks in it. So they are seeking out the culture of people who would probably love to have, many of them, 9-to-5 jobs.
Napkins on the lap, the family awaits service. They converse pleasantly while Dad serves.
Yet for many young white Americans, the affluence around them was also a kind of prison.
Pleasant, unemotional conversation helps digestion.
I
Father
felt that my
serves mother
parents
first.
had lived such a stultifying, boring kind of life that I felt I had to do something wildly different or I would just die.
Joyce Johnson met Kerouac on a blind date arranged by Allen Ginsberg. Over a hamburger and French fries, which she paid for, she fell in love with Kerouac.
The sense that I had of Jack and of Alan and all these other people who were older than I was were that they were leading very daring, risky lives, and that they were sort of on the edge of disaster.
During the early 50s, Kerouac spent more and more time on the West Coast, where he discovered Buddhism, took long retreats into the wilderness, and experimented with drugs. Publishers rejected his writing, but a few underground critics sensed that Kerouac's searchings would resonate with a restless younger generation hungry for the open road. Hollywood sensed the same mood.
Hey, Johnny, what are you rebelling against?
What do you got? Man, you are too square. I have to straighten you out. You just go.
They took the song of the open road and set it to a new, modern beat with lyrics that came straight out of black jazz clubs.
Now, if you're gonna stay cool, you got to wail. You got to put something down. You got to make some jive. Don't you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, that's all I'm saying.
My father was going to take me on a fishing trip to Canada once.
Yeah,
We didn't go.
crazy.
What's your road, man? Holy Boy Road, Madman Road, Rainbow Road, Guppy Road, any road. It's an anywhere road for anybody, anyhow.
Kerouac could type almost as fast as he could think, or as fast as he could think. And his method was, don't stop to think of words, but to see the picture better. So that there was an unrolling, almost like the movie of the mind.
Kerouac's movie of the mind unfurled on a sheet of teletype paper. This rolling manuscript with no paragraphs and sentences that went on page after page became the first draft of a novel called On the Road.
The first time I saw the manuscript of On the Road, I knew I had something very special. So then I started to try to sell it. And that was around 1951 or 52. And there were 5 years of efforts in which I had some of the most interesting rejection letters in the business. And I remember one in particular that said, in rejecting the manuscript, the editor said, "Discipline. Kerouac's got to learn discipline. When will he ever learn discipline?"
He wasn't writing about people who got married and raised nice families. He was talking about these wild young people who went on the road, had a lot of sex, drank, took dope, listened to a lot of jazz, were looking for kicks, were not holding responsible jobs. This was a very, very threatening message in the 50s.
Hello,
hello, yes, this is Mary. How are you? Bye.
They say your kitchen dazzles every eye.
A brand new sink, a built-in oven, a new refrigerator, and a phone, a kitchen phone, a bright red phone. I gotta go. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. I'll call you later.
I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving, hysterical, naked, dragging themselves through the Negro streets at dawn looking for an angry fix. Angel-headed hipsters.
A search for love and a cry of anger, Howl by Allen Ginsberg would be the launch pad for the Beat generation.
Moloch, robot apartments, invisible suburbs, skeleton treasuries, blind capitals, demonic industries, spectral nations, invincible madhouse, granite cocks, monstrous bombs.
And one day I sat at my typewriter and said, well, I'll just write what I feel like writing, imitating Kerouac, basically, and feeding in all the experience I had politically and socially and whatever else, normal intelligence, without any intention of publishing it. And therefore, I was free to write anything I want. So that was an interesting situation, to give up on ambition, give up on publishing, be beat, so to speak, and free.
The first public performance of Howl took place in San Francisco at a converted garage called the Six Gallery.
About, I think, 150 people showed up for the event, and people were standing, people were seated on the floor, and they were listening to us read, and they were drinking wine. Jack Kerouac was in there going, go, 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 as we read. So it had some of the aspects of a jazz program. What Howl was for all those people who were feeling that police state authoritarianism and were suffering from it and needed to hear that they weren't alone in their suffering. That was a big change in American thinking.
You know what it takes, you got it, baby. You are the only one I chose.
Sam Phillips invited Elvis back to the studio and brought in two other musicians, Scotty Moore and Bill Black. Phillips was disappointed with the results. Whatever he had originally heard in Elvis's voice wasn't coming through.
Well, we'd been in 4 or 5 times and nothing really happened. And so I had come in the studio and told them that, hey, they could stay around and kick it around a little more, or they could go on home. And Elvis kept on his guitar. In the meantime, Scotty had taken off his strap on his guitar, and Bill had laid his bass down, his old upright doghouse bass. And Elvis cut down on this thing, and I mean, he just beat the hell out of the guitar. I mean, he'd break strings going and coming. And he started out, "That's All Right, Mama." Well, I'd heard that old song, but I mean, he had never offered it, at all. In fact, I had no idea he knew it. When I heard that, man, I said, good God, this is what we're looking for.
Well, that's all right, Mama. That's all right for you.